Hello, welcome to my talk about missing murdered Indigenous women, otherwise known as #MMIW, and how that relates to an augmented reality face meshing app that I'm building with a team of others. First off, my name is Stephen Emery. I am from the Chickahominy Eastern Tribe, and that goes along with my name, Mexiquana, that's in parentheses to the right. You'll see that on all my dev handles and such, so I just wanted to bring it up. It's a name my father gave me. It means moving water, and it's an Algonquin name that we pull from Chickahominy Eastern, which my dad is part of the tribe as well. I'm an Android and iOS developer. I'm focused on augmented reality for mobile devices. I'm also a father of two. Both my sons are members of Chickahominy Eastern as well. And I have a wonderful wife who, without her help, this project wouldn't have gotten started, and neither would this presentation. First off, what should you know about MMIW? Some of you may already know and some of you may not. So I just want to start out with some statistics. I'm just going to read through these. So on some reservations, Native women are murdered at a rate 10 times the national average. Between 2005 and 2009, U.S. Attorney Generals declined to prosecute 67% of Native community matters involving sexual abuse. 84% of Native women have experienced violence in their lifetime. 96% of sexual violence against Native women is perpetrated by non-natives. 5,712. That is the number of known incidents of missing and murdered Native American and Alaska Native women in 2016. Only 116 cases were logged in the DOJ database. And just for reference, 5,712 is a number higher than the casualty rate of the entire decade of which the Iraq War took. So how does MMIW and AR face meshing come together? Well, as I was learning about MMIW and reading the statistics, I came across these portraits of Asia, Michelle, and Nick. That's from top to bottom. Amazing activists who are working to bring awareness to MMIW. And after seeing the red hand and the black hand on their faces, it felt like this would lend itself to AR. And so what I wanted is an app that I could help make a difference in the world. I could use something that was in my development stack, but it was outside of work, and it would, make an incremental difference or maybe a large difference depending on how well it went. But the goal was to make a difference. And so after seeing these portraits and the red and black hands, the decision was born to build an Android and iOS app using ARCore. Just a side note, every one of the people in these portraits are amazing. They're very positive on the app and very helpful, and have been great when I reach out for information and other help. So let's take a look at the designs. I started off with designing this myself, and I won't trouble you with showing you those designs because they're not great. They were okay, but they're not great. So after seeing that they needed some work, I reached out to a good friend of mine who's also the director of design at my company. Her name's Teresa, and I said, this is the app I'm building. This is the cause I'm building it for. Do you have any ideas? And she got very excited about the prospect of working on this app. So she said that she could join the team and make the app look more professional, make it look more like an up-to-date app. And I was like, yes, thank you. And so hence these designs were born. The first two slides you'll see are missing murdered Indigenous women, and then it goes into MMIW. It's actually the same screen. There's an animation that morphs from missing murdered Indigenous women to MMIW, and Teresa added a couple of animations in here that just really made the UI look great. And so once we go from that animation, we go into the statistics slides. We have Michelle on the first side, and then Nick on the second side, and Asia on the third side. And I didn't get the okay from the foresight, so I won't mention her name. But we wanted to increase awareness. So as the user enters this app and goes through these slides, their awareness about MMIW builds. And before they even get to the point of taking an augmented picture with the red hand on their face, they will have learned something along the way. Just as a side note, all of these designs have been built in Figma. And so if you have any questions about Figma, feel free to ask. It's a great tool for all of this. And so that was an aside. So after the statistics, we'll go to the agreement page. The agreement page is basically to say, hey, be respectful when you use this app. We talked about adding each and every way that someone could be disrespectful as like a no list. But at the end of the day, that list is so long that it's not feasible. And so we just wanted to keep it short and simple to let them know what this app is for and that they can learn more. And if they agree, they can hit agree and they'll move on to the camera view. And here you'll see that we have the red hand. There's an option for a black hand that we're hoping to add in Android. It's already been added in iOS. There's the big capture button. And on the right side, you can flip the hand from right to left hand. After they hit the capture button, they'll be taken to the next screen where you see the MMIW banner at the top. And then at the bottom, you'll see a statistic in a view at the bottom. That'll be a swipeable view, and so the statistic can change, or it could be a quote like no more stolen sisters. And so it'll be changeable so it can be updated and be unique to the person, what they thought was the most impactful. And when they take this image, that banner and that statistic will go along with the image when they go to share, so that each image is as unique as possible and the information gets shared on social media. The last slide is the share slide, but I will switch to the next slide. The reason that's its own slide is I feel like this is the most important piece. We're working with an organization to gather information, hopefully. If people are willing to share with us, we hope to take their image, their email address, and their state. We want to keep the information as minimal as possible because we don't want any privacy concerns and we don't want anything leaking out from our database. So we're keeping as minimal as possible. The reason we want to use the email address and state is so that we can update users on community action events, legislative actions in their area, and any alerts for missing and murdered Indigenous women. As an aside, when someone goes missing, there's a matter of hours to find that person, not days. And usually police don't get involved until a day or so later. And so having an entire community of people in the state looking for someone just speeds up that time frame so that more people are looking within hours as opposed to days. But we also hope to share they share their image and we'll take the state with that information. We're going to build a website with a collage of photos so that people can see how much support this issue has for fixing it. And the state will be added so that if you click on, say, your state, you'll just see the portraits of the people in your state and you can see how many people are willing to come together for this issue. All right, so we're going to jump into the code. We're going to start with the face meshing side of the code. Before we even write lines of code, we need to create the texture that we want to be used inside the app. On the prototype 4, you'll see that this is just the base template image. And so we use that so that we can draw whatever we like on that face, and then it'll be used later to show on the face and on the device and the camera. So you start with the template, you draw what you like, and in this case we have a black hand. You'll notice that we try not to cover the nostrils or the eyes or the mouth. The reason is it creates a weird effect when, say, you open your mouth or things stretch. So keeping the slit for the mouth is very important. And then once we're done adding the piece that we want, we remove the background template and we leave the hand with the full size image and we export that from Figma. We take that hand and then we're going to create a texture of it in the next slide. So there are a few requirements that need to be met when using ARCore. You need Android API 24 and above. That's 7.0 Nougat up to current. You need to request camera permissions in the Android manifest and programmatically as the user uses the app. And then once you got all that set up, we can go into the code. And in our case, we have the face AR fragment that extends the scene forms AR fragment. And we're going to override two functions here. One is get session configuration, and we're going to set augmented face mode to augmented face mode.mesh3D. So that way we've turned on the ability to mesh the face. And then we're going to override get session features and set that session feature to front camera. And that's so you're not meshing outward, you're meshing your face that's looking at the phone. So it's an important piece to have it facing you so you can see what's going on. All of the code that I'm using today, I borrowed heavily from this blog. There's a source at the bottom, creativetech.blog. So if you'd like to see example code or learn more, you can check out that blog and see how they're using the code. And so now we're going to go into our activity, and this is where we create the texture that we're going to use on the face. So we're using the builder pattern. This is in Kotlin. So we have the texture, and we're doing .builder to get it set up, and then we're going to set the source. That r.drawable red hand, that's the same hand that we exported from Figma. In this case, it's red. There's also black, whichever you want to set here. And then we're going to build it, and then we set that texture to the face mesh texture that we're going to use when we set up ARCore. So once you have the texture, we need to pull the scene view from the AR fragment, and then we get the scene. And when we have the scene, we can add the on update listener. And what this does is it lets us know every frame that comes through. And what we do with that information is used for tracking and adding the texture to the face with each frame of the camera. So you can see we've got our scene view.session, we get the trackables, which is a collection of faces. And then for each face in that face collection, we're going to add the texture to the nodes that are on the face. And so it applies the face and it tracks as you go left and right. And if you have any questions, I'll have my contact info at the end so you can ask me more questions. I didn't want to go too deep, so I'm just going to leave it here for now. But essentially, ARCore makes it very simple with scene form to track a face and then add a texture to it. There's not a whole lot of code there. Next up, we're going to take a look at MotionLayout. We use MotionLayout for animations. Android Studio 4.0 has made it very easy to do this. And so I'm just going to talk through this process. When you create a layout for Android and you want to make an animation for it, you will declare the MotionLayout as the topmost feature of the layout. And so you have MotionLayout at the top. You give it an ID, you can give it a background if you like. One important piece is the app layout description near the top. That's where you set your scene. This is a file we're going to create, and it gets referenced by the MotionLayout. So once we've got that set up, we're going to add all of our views. This is just a few. You saw in the beginning with the missing murdered Indigenous women and how it morphs into MMIW. This is just the first few views. You got the hand that was at the very bottom, and the hashtag, and the M text with the rest of the missing text. So those are the views that we have for missing across the top. And we're going to use these IDs and the scene, which I'll show you next. One thing to note here is we don't set any constraints. So all of the constraints get set in the scene. None of them get set here. You can set the layout width and height, but we're also going to update those in the scene as well. But typically in Android, you'd set constraints here, and that's just a defining feature of MotionLayout that they don't get set here. You set them in the scene itself. When you create the scene, you're going to, at the very top, you're going to start with the transition. And so in the constraint set start, you set what starting animation you have, like the very beginning, and then you're going to set the end, which is animation end. And so you have point A to point B, and then you're going to set the duration it takes to get from point A to point B. And then you can choose among quite a few interpolators. The one we chose is ease in and out, which is just basically rather linear. It goes from A to B. In the slide, I have a video, and you can see at least 5 other ones. There's quite a few more, but I'll show you these just so that you can see what they look like. So push play, and you can see that they're all interpolating at different rates, and they're all moving across in very distinct fashions. But the nice thing is that Android handles all of this, and you just give it a duration. So we've set the transition, and then we're going to create our scenes. And so on the left, we have animation start, and on the right, we have animation end. At the top, you can see, so we're going to start with the start. At the top, you can see our IDs of hand watermark, and the other 2 views, mText and missing text. Those are the same IDs that we had set in our motion layout previously. So it knows where to look. You also notice here that you have the constraint end and constraint starts. And so we're setting our constraints here so that we know where we want it to start, and we'll set similar or different constraints in the end. Another thing we'll notice here is motion visibility mode is set to ignore. This is not an important piece unless you're trying to set the visibility of each view programmatically. If you just want MotionLayout to handle it, you can delete this and ignore visibility mode. But if you ever want to change the visibility of the view programmatically outside of this file, you should set visibility mode set to ignore. A couple other features you'll see in the hand watermark, there's a custom attribute color filter. We use this to set the color of the hand to start, and in this case it's dark gray. And then we'll move it to red at the end. And then at the very bottom, you'll see custom attribute, the attribute name alpha, and we set it to fully opaque, and this is for the last half of missing. And so it starts out visible, and then we're going to move to alpha 0, which makes it fully transparent. And so you'll see these in the next slide. But so in start, you set where you want to start. And then in our animation end, you'll see that we have all the same views, watermark, mText, latter half of missing. You see visibility mode ignore as well. The constraints have changed because they're moving. And then custom attribute color filter has the colors changed to red, and the alpha on the latter half of missing text is changed to 0, so it's going to disappear. This is really hard to explain, so I feel like a video is much more helpful. So I'll go to that next. So in Android Studio, they've added a motion layout editor. The beauty of this is that when working with animations and motion, you don't have to spin up a full emulator or build to a device to see what's going on. You can just play it within Android Studio, and you can see from start to end what it's going to look like, how fast it'll go, and it just makes it really simple to use, and it's very lightweight. So let's push play, and you can see it in action. So we go to animation start, you can see missing murdered Indigenous women, you can see all the pieces, Go to animation end. You can see where it's going to end up. You see that the hand has changed and it's morphed to MMIW. When you click that arrow at the top, you can hit play and then you can see the animation go forward and back or however you want. So if you like, we can look at this again. So you have animation start, and then you can go to animation end to see where you're going to go. And then the arrow that goes across the two, you can click that to push play, and it'll move in between each animation and so show you the full interpolation. It's a really cool feature. All right, now moment of truth. I want to show you where we're at in Android. We've got a lot of pieces together. It's still in progress. There's still things missing like the share page. We're still missing like changing the color of the hand, but this is where we're at today. And a huge shout out to Caitlin for doing the animations in MotionLayout, and the ones that you'll see in this video are the initial one and on the agreement page where the text slides up. So let me push play. So we've gotten through the 4 statistics. Hopefully you had a chance to read them if you haven't already. We're on the agreement page, and if you saw the nice animation of it going off screen to on screen and moving up, after the user reads this and hits agree, we're going to move to camera view. And you'll notice the red hand. It's transparent at this point. I'm working with Pete Soloway to change the hand to maybe use a multiply function, or maybe just create instead of a texture, like a 3D object, and so we can add lighting and maybe a paint texture. And so that's in the works, and we'll be working on that as we can. We'll just keep playing as I talk, so it'll go through it again. When you click send to, that's going to bring up the share modal that's not there at the moment. But as you hit share, it's going to go and bring up the system view, the system share. And so that's not handled by us. That's just using Android's built-in features. And so it's going to be able to be used for Facebook, Instagram, anything you have installed on the device. You could save the image to your device and use it wherever you like. You could email it to somebody. It just makes it really simple to use the system share function because then it'll just tie into everything. Another note on the share modal, if they hit share with us, then we're hoping to save it to a database. And we're going to use those pictures for the collage view that I was talking about earlier. We hope to have some sort of process to weed out any disrespectful photos, and that is to be determined how and what we're going to do for that. So that will come in the future. All right. So I just wanted to say thanks to everyone working on this. It's quite a large team. There's room for more if you want to join. We have the UX team, and I've tried to break this out into discipline, but also in joining order. So it's mostly in joining order, but split out. Hopefully I did that as well as I could. My wife was one of the first, Rachel, and then Teresa, who did the designs that I showed previously. Pete was working on the hand and making it look better and maybe making a 3D model of it. Nicole's been working on the UX flow and making it work as best as possible and smoothly as possible. On iOS, we have Mark, who's a member of Natives in Tech. He's been helping out and done a great job. Callum's also working on iOS. He's been doing the AR side of things. On QA, we have Hung. She's been amazing. She just tested this the other day and found a few things that I didn't even notice and on some devices that I don't have. And so she's been amazing help. For the database side of things, Jessica did a ton of research and found a much better way for the database to work, and I'm really excited to get the Android app in a place where we can send the data we have, the image, email, and state, to the database to be used on a website. The website still needs to be built. On Android, we have Caitlin and Caleb. Caitlin did a ton with the animations and has done a lot of work on those first few screens, and it's been amazing. Caleb's been helping out on the code and doing peer reviews. I'm also doing Android code, not as much as I would hope. I'm more playing the project lead, project manager on the team, so I don't get as much code in as I would like, but so it is. Yeah, so huge shout out to them. They're an amazing group, and I love working with each and every one of them. I'm just completely blown away by how quickly everyone joined and how excited they are to work on this project and help bring awareness to MMIW. So thank you to the team. Thank you to all who watched today and are listening. I want to say thank you to Adrian Larvey. He's the print that you see behind my slides. He allowed me to use this as a backdrop, and it's a beautiful painting that he did on the topic of MMIW. I also want to thank Natives in Tech for allowing me to speak and putting this on. If you have any questions, you can reach out on LinkedIn or GitHub. If you have questions about joining the team or questions about ARCore or MotionLayout, you can reach out. I will answer them as best I can. And if I don't have answers, I'll find them for you. So feel free. I'll be excited to talk to you. I've listed the sources at the bottom here. These are the sources that I used. So National Institute of Justice, Urban Indian Health Institute. If you're interested in ARCore face meshing, there's the creativetet.blog. And if you're really interested in Android internals and want to know about interpolators, that's the video I used previously. So yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and your willingness to learn more about MMIW and this project. I hope you all have a great day.